Hello and welcome. I'm Zilla, and welcome to my channel. This is my Ancient Gaming stream where I play video games with Ancient Studies content and talk about it. Today we are continuing our playthrough of Stray Gods, the role-playing musical murder mystery about Greek mythology. Yes, all of those things, and yes, it is wonderful, and no, I don't know of any other games like it. I keep getting asked all of that, and I just want to evangelize this game, but you know, it's also got some things. So we are now towards the end of Act 2. I do not know what is coming up. It should be exciting. We don't actually have a prime suspect yet that we have evidence for, but I have my suspicions. Do you have suspicions? I'd love to hear about it. Well, maybe by the end of today's playthrough, we'll have some proof. In any case, if you do not want to get spoiled on the game by starting in the middle, you are always welcome to go back. You can find all of my streams and all of my other content uploaded on my YouTube channel, Zilla's Athenaeum. And you can also find last week's stream should be still up on the Twitch page. So with that in mind, let's head into spoiler territory, and I will just get everybody up to speed. So we are playing Grace, a singer in a band who is feeling lost after college. Somebody applies to be in the band, but then later in the evening shows up on her doorstep with a fatal wound, dies in her arms, and transfers an eidolon, the idol or soul of the muse Calliope, is now residing in Grace, and the chorus, the administrative powers that be among the Greek gods, have Grace in mind as the killer. So she's got 1 week to prove she didn't do it, to find the killer, solve the mystery. We have at this point befriended Persephone and Apollo, two of the people on the chorus, and also helped Aphrodite, another member of the chorus, to pass on her eidolon to a new host. There have been some fun and controversial things. Lots of exciting World War II references. That's the part that gets weird and controversial. The rest has been just amazing. There's some great representation in this game. Very, modern people living in a modern world with dealing with having lived for thousands of years and really only knowing each other. So we have just talked to / escaped Medusa, who is clearly twisted into being the monster she's portrayed as because of the abuse she's received, but she does have a craving for human flesh, so there's that. And what we know is that Calliope went to the reliquary, the magic library that the gods keep, didn't actually get what she was looking for. Somebody stabbed her. She ran off. Medusa found her there and chased her, but wasn't actually there for the stabbing, and nobody has seen who it was that was also in the reliquary. But only a few people actually have access to the reliquary, so kind of want to know who they are. So at this point, I think we're going to dive into the game, and hope you'll enjoy. Oh, if at any point you do see the video freezing or the audio drops out, please let me know in chat. I have had that happen a couple of times with this game, and I don't know why. But yeah, do feel free to say hi and chime in, and please enjoy. So we are on day 6 of our week. Oh, I think think the video's frozen. Why does it do that? Hold on a second. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. Okay, so we could talk to Persephone again, or we could talk to Freddy. I don't think we really have much to ask Persephone at this point, but I do want to talk to... Yeah, at the end of the last session we just talked to her, so there's really not much to say. So I'm going to talk to Freddy before we end for the evening. Because I assume going home just means going to bed.
Hey, so what's the news, Miss Muse?
Miss Muse.
Well,
Hey, that
Muse
was
have a
cute.
proper form of
Don't
address?
knock Freddy for it.
I just want to hear what exciting adventures you've been having.
Well, I went to a party held by the goddess of love, and she died.
Man, I always miss the really good parties. Here I was, sitting at home, just reading a book. Everything else okay, though? Do we know who the killer is yet?
Not just yet, no.
Okay, well, let me know if there's anything I can do. If I have to hustle to become your high priestess, well, so be it.
The Muses didn't really have priests, but wow. That is just an amazing... Freddy is such a nerd. I love her so much. Oh my goodness. You know, I want to know what is going on with our bandmates, because they have just vanished.
What are Kaz and Brian up to? You didn't tell them anything, did you?
Oh, I told them you came home, that you're okay, but that you're having a moment. They send their love.
Should we tell them, do you think?
What for? They have their own problems. Plus, Brian can't keep a secret to save his life, and Kaz is officially homeless.
Is he still crashing on Brian's couch?
Grace, you do know that Brian doesn't have a couch, right? Just some giant beanbag things?
And where is Kaz
Yeah, it's cute. They'll tell us when they're ready. But right now, it's best just to not mix them up in this.
Agreed. So we have determined that anything with that question mark is something that I can ask and not end the conversation, not eliminate any other pathways. So I'll just keep
I should
on this
really
track.
apologize about the band. This kind of puts a dent in your plans, doesn't it?
You're right, Grace. How dare you sabotage my dreams? I am so mad I could spit.
You know what I mean. Nobody could have seen this coming, sure, but it's always been something with me.
Well, as I see it, there are two ways this goes down. One, neither of us gets back to the band. It was just a thing we did for a while before I founded a cult in your name. Or two, we get back to it and the band now has the Muse as its lead singer. Edge of Elysium becomes the coolest and most appropriate band name ever.
Like I
still
said,
really hate
Freddie
that
is a
name.
nerd. She's
Look,
the one
Grace,
who knows
you can't
all
be
the
the source
stuff
of all
about
the
Greek
drama and
mythology.
name the band. Okay, that's the rule.
The source of drama was also a pun, of course, because the Muses inspired playwriting, among other things. So Freddie is the one who was running the band. She named it Edge of Elysium, which is, of course, in reference to the place in the Greek underworld in Hades where the heroes went to rest. It's supposed to be the nicest part of Hades. It's not really like heaven. Like, you still get the sense that the shades there would rather be alive. And by get the sense, I mean we have a direct quote from one of them in the Odyssey. Well, I should say indirect quote because, of course, it's all told by Odysseus, and who can trust that guy? He's complicated. Shout out to Emily Wilson, the translator of one of the most recent versions of the Odyssey. Amazing, with her new Iliad translation coming out soon. I don't have any stake in this, I just love it. People got very mad about her calling Odysseus complicated when it's the perfect word. Translation is a hard business, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise. But I've gotten off topic. So yeah, I mean, Freddie is very much right when she's talking about a cult founded in her name. Not the modern sense of cult where it's, like, dangerous. Like, we're not talking about the bite model here. We're talking about, like, the mystery cults of ancient Greece, or even just hero cults, where you get there's a cult to Demeter and Persephone, the Eleusinian mysteries, which were devoted to sort of a reincarnation idea. We, of course, don't know a ton about the actual rituals of them, but we do know that they believed in rebirth through worship of Persephone, who is the quintessential goddess who goes down regularly into the underworld for part of the year and comes back. The death of winter and the rebirth of spring. And that they had some hope of their souls not being stuck in Hades but returning to live again. And, then they have there's a cult of Helen, a cult of Heracles, these things that are sometimes considered gods and sometimes considered heroes that they're just small religious groups. They're not necessarily keeping anybody from worshiping anything else. And generally not. That would be anathema in Greece. And so, founding a cult in the name of the muse would not be at all ridiculous. That's a very knowledgeable thing to say, actually, for Freddie. So, it is a really good idea to ask her
Exactly how much do you know about the Greek
about the
gods,
gods.
Freddie?
I know my Greek mythology, but what I've read clearly doesn't line up with who they are today. Or who they ever were, maybe.
Still might be useful. There's got to be some truth to those stories, right?
Maybe? Who do you want to hear about?
Oh, this should be fun. Let's start with
Do you know
Calliope.
anything about the muses? Or Calliope in particular?
Let's see what they
Yeah,
say.
for starters, there were supposed to be 9. Though I guess there are some sources that said there were only 4, maybe 3. Each of the muses had her specialty. Did you know that Calliope is supposed to be the muse of epic poetry? She inspired the Odyssey.
Sang
Wow.
O muse of
I
a
don't even like
complicated
poetry.
man.
Yeah, it was said her singing voice was unmatched. So they got that part right, at least.
Did she also lead the ancient Greeks in giant choreographed dance numbers?
Yes.
No, but she once turned a bunch of snobby princesses into magpies, so there's that.
I don't think I know that story. This is not a surprise, by the way. There are lots and lots and lots and lots of myths. Not all of them are attested in actual Greek. Many of them were potentially invented by people like Ovid in the Roman Empire or later to make particular points. My guess is that's something from the Metamorphosis, because the Metamorphosis is all myths of people getting turned into other things, basically. But right, so that we've talked before on this series a lot about how there are different sources that give different numbers of muses, and the idols in this have been very clear that there were 3 muses: Calliope, Clio, and Thalia. So I believe that's I didn't manage to look that up, but I believe that is epic poetry, history, and Thalia. Thalia was the name of both a grace and a muse, and I always remember that she's the grace of blooming and growth, because that's Thalia. That's what it means, flowers. I want to say she was drama. Anyway, we've heard those names. We know that they were prone to gender swapping more than the other idols, although not exclusively them. We do know that Thalia was lost long ago. She just vanished? She was kind of losing herself in the mortals that she inhabited, and that Cleo was killed, I believe. You can watch the previous streams. That story kind of is getting fuzzy in my head, but So the muses were inspiration. There was a muse of choral dance, Terpsichore. So, like, but when we say that they have specific realms over which they were, over which they reigned, that also varies a lot in the sources. Freddie is here working primarily from the Alexandrian, the Library of Alexandria codification. Okay, so let's ask about
What about
Apollo next.
Apollo?
'Cause he's
Okay, so the
associated with
prophecy
muses.
stuff checks out. Apollo was god of the sun and light, but also kind of enlightenment in general. He's always talked about as this beautiful and cultured god involved with the arts and the muses, kind of a Renaissance man before the Renaissance.
He's clearly had a rough time since those days.
Well, he was also a giant horn dog, Grace. I can list off like a dozen men and women Apollo has had as lovers, and there's probably more.
Weren't they all like that, though?
I mean, Apollo's no Zeus. He never assaulted anyone as a swan. And no, they aren't all like that. Our sun god had a reputation.
I mean, he did assault people, but he didn't take the form of a swan to do it. That's true. Let's
What
ask
about
about Athena.
Is she really supposed to be the goddess of wisdom?
Sure. But mostly that's meant as tactical knowledge. Athena wasn't all sweetness and light. She was a warrior goddess. She was also the goddess of heroes. There are loads of stories where Athena helps guys like Odysseus or Jason or Perseus.
No female heroes back in those days?
Yeah, I guess not. Women were the weaker sex, which maybe is why Athena was portrayed as being vindictive. She cursed Medusa, one of her own priestesses. She turned people into spiders, struck them blind, started the Trojan War. It's the whole thing.
Not being as wise as advertised is on brand for her, then.
I don't remember a story of Athena turning someone blind. Certainly Hera did. And Helen. And... God, there's one more that I'm missing that I had in my head a second ago that is not Athena. But yeah, Medusa was supposed to be one of Athena's priestesses who was raped by Poseidon and bore a child, and in punishment for being raped by Poseidon and bearing a child, Athena turned her into a monster. Sometimes Poseidon turned her into a monster for killing the child. Sometimes she was just born as a Gorgon, because she did have two sister Gorgons. In this one, very clearly, Athena cursed her, and we haven't actually heard why. But she is an extremely abusive... I would call her an enslaver, really, for Medusa. Do not like Athena in this game. So that bit where she was saying that Athena's really only meant to be wisdom in the sense of, like, tactics and strategy, that's kind of true. Aside from interacting with heroes, she's not really who you pray to for, like, eloquence. That's the muses. She's not really who you pray to for diplomacy, which I don't think they really did that. That was more a human thing. But in most places, Athena was primarily a crafting goddess. And I'm not talking about, like, making weapons. That's Hephaestus. I'm talking about weaving. So that's the Arachne story where she turned the best weaver she ever encountered into a spider. Because the weaver was actually better than her. She won a competition. Granted, judged by mortals. But she won a weaving competition straight up. And Athena punished her, turning her into a spider, cursing her and all of her kin to weave beautiful, intricate patterns from a slightly different perspective. Incidentally, in Ovid, where this is one of the key stories, Arachne's weaving is intentionally blasphemous as well, showing all of the negative aspects of the gods. And Athena, well, Minerva, Romans, uses this as an excuse for the punishment that she metes out. Because no matter how beautiful, blasphemy deserves punishment. You know, a slight dig at the unfairness of the gods. Ovid was good at that kind of thing. But, you know, when Athena, was interacting with heroes, she was often doing things like, you know, the first time we see her in the Iliad, one of our earliest stories, she's actually stopping Achilles from killing the leader of the Greeks, Agamemnon. She grabs his hair to advise him to wait. That, you know, he's right to be angry because Agamemnon stole from him. We won't go into what he stole. Okay, it was a woman. A slave. But, you know, she does offer disguises. She does offer clever things. So that is on the table for her even in non-Athenian versions of her. Of course, in Athens, Athena is just like she's the shit, right? Because that's her town. But let's talk about Persephone.
Tell me what you know about Persephone.
Honestly, she's the least like her stories. Usually, she's either a victim or just the wife of Hades, or both.
And that's it? She was kidnapped by Hades, end of story?
Pretty much. Her mother was so angry, she created winter. But otherwise, Persephone was just your average sweet and virginal fertility goddess.
You're right, that doesn't sound like her at all.
Must be hard to be defined by this one thing that happened to you thousands of years ago. I'd be pissed if everyone thought my story ended there.
Well, she is pretty pissed. That much is true.
Yeah, so that is true that's the only myth about Persephone that is commonly taught when you read Greek mythology. But Freddie seems to have studied more than just, you know, your average mythology textbook, or you know, mythology kids book, at least. So I'm surprised that she doesn't know about the older Persephone stories, how Persephone was dread queen of the underworld, and at least as feared as her husband. There's the story of Adonis, which involves a love triangle or a struggle basically between Persephone and Aphrodite over Adonis, the most beautiful mortal man. And you know, there are other things like the Eleusinian mysteries that I would expect Freddie to know about. So that's an interesting take. But yeah, this Persephone is certainly queen of the underworld in multiple senses.
You said Pan was some kind of lust god, right?
Kind of. Pan's a god of the wild, and I guess that translates into sort of lustfulness and earthiness, humping nymphs in the
Freddie's
forest
animations.
sort of thing.
And you don't like him.
Frames?
Honestly, he's exactly what I'd expect him to be. All the stories say he's a lech and a beast. The Christians equated him with the devil. Weirdly, he's also the only god who's supposed to have died, though it's never really clear how or why. Anyhow, there's a great statue depicting Pan having sex with a goat. Next time you see him, you gotta ask him about it.
So I don't know about the story where Pan died. I don't remember that. But yes, it's true that Pan is associated with satyrs, who are generally depicted with giant erect phalloi, and with chasing down nymphs for sex. They were wilderness spirits. Pan also is the god of panic. That's where that comes from, which is wildness sent into the mortal mind. So it's much less about fear and more about losing the ability to reason and just reacting. So this version is very much more about general satyrs, it's from the sound of it. Like he is lustful, he's shifty, he's, just generally kind of a disrespected character, not very civilized, in the sense of Athena, at least. And I'm a little surprised that Freddie agrees. But honestly, when I was playing this with some friends, they also just like their immediate reaction to Pan was, ugh, used car salesman, get him out of here, do not want to listen to him. And I think he's actually kind of sweet. Like, it's not that they're wrong, it's not that I don't see that, but I also kind of see it as a front. And there have been some dialogue pieces that bear this out, that Pan is actually a really caring person and that he meddles in affairs the way that he does, partially out of a desire to keep things peaceful. I don't know. I certainly seem to have a lot more respect for Pan than most. I don't know about the myth about him dying, though. No arguments that he was supposed to be very lustful. That, definitely yes.
Just how many of these gods are there? From what I've heard, lots of idols live around here.
Well, there are tons of minor gods in Greek mythology, hundreds even, depending on how you define them. Oddly, there's never any mention of the word idols in relation to them. Maybe it's like how people worshipped idols?
I sort of assumed it was related to the eidolon.
It is.
Which is a Greek word, but I think it means ghost. An image of someone after they die.
Makes sense.
Me? I'm more amazed at all the big names missing. Not just Zeus and Hades, most of the Olympians seem to be gone. Makes you think about what's been lost, but also what might still be out there.
You think there might be other gods out there?
Well, there are all those gods the idols say wandered off. We don't know they're dead for sure, right? They could be living it up in Australia. Who would know? Then there are all the other mythologies, hundreds of cultures, each with their own pantheon. So what's so special about the Greeks? That only their gods are real, right? All those other pantheons could be living in secrecy, just like the idols. And that means they're hidden from each other, too. Oh, they could be everywhere and no one would know.
It's like a whole other secret side to the world.
And if I know Freddie,
cool,
she's like
right?
super excited. Yep.
I hope I get to
Yep,
meet
there
Ganesha
she
one day.
goes.
Or maybe Lakshmi?
Freddie is so me. Never enough about mythology. That's the point. Never enough.
I wonder how much of those stories are true.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I'm giving you the quick version. There are reams of textbooks out there covering all this, but even they rarely agree with each other.
Really? Nothing definitive?
Ancient Greece was 3,000 years ago, Grace. Not much information survived all that time, if it was even valid to begin with.
So let's talk about that 3,000 year figure. So here we are in 2023. So let's call it what would that be? 960 something BC. So this is during what Greek historians have often called the Greek Dark Ages, because we don't find a lot in the records from this time. There seems to have been a period of 3,000 to 4,000 years between 12,000 and 8,000. 1,200 and 800. There we go. Words. BCE. That you know, like it follows the Bronze Age collapse, which I have a whole video on if you're interested in more about that, or you can read Klein's 1177 BCE, which is a great discussion of it. But basically, we had all of these grand civilizations, you know, the Egyptians, the Mycenaeans, and the this, and the that, and the that, and they're all trading with each other. And there's a bunch of natural disasters that hit. There's some pirates that start raiding the coasts, which seem to be made up of a lot of different island peoples and displaced peoples from the natural disasters. A bunch of refugees, a bunch of revolutions where people are like, you know, fuck kings, they don't protect us. So we have this period of 300 to 400 years where the archaeological record really doesn't tell us a lot about what was going on, and it would be around then that is in the like 1000 range. When we talk about ancient Greece, most of what we're talking about is actually the classical period, which is like 450 to maybe 250, depending how you talk about it, or maybe the Hellenic period, which is following that. You know, we get Alexander and all that jazz. So like, that's the main period that people think of when they think of ancient Greece. You know, my particular interest is older than that, when we start to come out of the Dark Ages. And by Dark Ages, we're really talking about our knowledge, not theirs. Stuff was happening. We know stuff was happening, but we don't know what the stuff was. But I'm really interested in that period where we start to come out of that and back into a more sort of like Greek colonial experience, where we have, you know, more writing being shared and being maintained, more trade starting to happen between cultures that we can actually follow. My interest is in historical linguistics, so like during the period where we don't have a lot of writing, there's not a lot for me to do. But also just I really love Sappho, and you know, her lifetime was probably somewhere around 700. So, you know, it's a bit older than that. So 3,000 years ago is a very rough figure, is basically all I'm trying to say there.
You know what I find weird? That the idols have managed to remain completely secret all these years. Sure, they have magic and whatnot, but in all this time, nobody's found them out? Athena is that good?
Who says nobody has found them out? The way I see it, it's like UFOs.
Okay, I have to hear this.
Okay, so you have real evidence that UFOs exist and that governments have covered it up, and people still wouldn't believe it. Why? Because they'd get laughed at if they admitted it.
Hi,
Imagine
Bishless
the
Kamikaze.
headline.
Welcome.
Greek
Thanks
gods
for watching
exist
along.
and are
Glad
living
to have
among
you.
us. What website would even run that?
Weird conspiracy ones. Yeah, you're right.
Oh, one thing that calls to mind is that there are Greek pagans alive now, people who worship the Greek gods, and it's a legitimate religion that some people have. I have some friends who do, and you know, it doesn't have to be like a very sort of like sincere, the gods live on Olympus kind of religion to be meaningful and powerful the way that religion can be for some people. Personally, I don't understand religion in that way. It doesn't click with me. I did a whole thing on Jewish identity where you can hear more about my religion, and I may be doing more on that topic soon. We'll see. But yeah. So yeah, you know, of course, if somebody like comes out and is like, I met the Greek gods, yeah, of course they're going to wind up in the tabloids and nobody's going to take them seriously. So quite likely she's right. People have found them out in various ways before. I mean, we already saw some guy escape from Medusa's clutches. Our fault. Fault? But, you know, you don't come out of the hypnotizing snake dancer lady flesh eaters nightclub and tell people about exactly what happened without them suspecting that you've gotten a little loopy because of your trauma and are, you know, putting it off onto something a little bit more fantastical.
Okay, that's enough questions for now.
You sure? I can talk all day. You know I can.
I'll check back with you soon, Freddy. Time for
I would like to
mystery
talk to Freddy
solving.
all day. Okay. So I don't think we have anything more to say to Professor Heffany, so let's give it a rest, shall we? Let's find out what happens. What's coming next? Oh, hey! It's Hermes.
Hi, Grace. I can just call you Grace, right?
That's my name. Where's Freddy?
She went out to get snacks. We were gonna watch TV while we waited, but, well, here you are.
Hermes is acting shifty. Hermes, why are you acting shifty? I love that Hermes is canonically non-binary in this. It's so good. But of course, Hermes wandering into the apartment, Freddy would invite them to, like, hang out. That makes total sense. This is not weird.
Waited. Were you looking for me?
All over, yeah. Athena sent me to find you, but it wasn't easy. Yeah, you must have been busy.
Yeah, because I stand trial soon.
Right. Right, that makes sense. Anyway, I guess Athena wants to talk? I can zip us over to Olympus anytime, if you're free.
I like the fridge magnets. Weird Friday. I don't know if that says Friday, but weird anyway. So this is kind of what Hermes does, which is fun. Hermes is the messenger god. They are constantly... they're also the psychopomp. They ferry souls to the underworld. They bring messages among the gods along with their co-worker Iris, the rainbow. Iris is typically, in particular, a messenger from gods to mortals, where Hermes can be any kind of message. But Hermes also has dominion over merchants and gamblers and thieves and tricksters. So I don't trust this. I think this is likely to be some kind of trap, but I also think that Hermes in this version is not very good at concealing their emotions, and so it is not something that they think will get us killed. Probably.
So this is what you do? Ferry people around?
I'm the god of messengers, baby. Travelers, doorways, any kind of transition, really.
Transition.
The old Hermes said that the transition part made even more sense for me, which, you know, extra cool, right?
Yeah, that's true.
I can connect any two doorways
they
anywhere,
made the same joke I
just
did.
like that. So it's super easy to take people wherever. I don't mind.
So, Hermes in the stories is... I can't think of anything where he's not male, but his child is Hermaphroditus, the child of him and Aphrodite. And Hermaphroditus is where we get our word hermaphrodite, meaning somebody with characteristics of both sexes. So it's not at all surprising to find Hermes associated with gender ambiguity. It's not at all surprising to see Hermes associated with transition. I'm glad they made the same joke I did. Apparently, the voice actor for Hermes is also non-binary trans. I don't know much about them, but, like, good on the studio.
You mentioned the old Hermes a lot. You knew him?
Yeah, I was homeless for a while. It wasn't a great time, and he took me in. Everyone's on the same journey, he used to say. Only the roads are different. And then he went on his journey. Man, I still miss him every day.
Wait, isn't he still inside you? Aren't you kind of the same person now?
Not yet. It's only been a year. Maybe I'll feel him again one day. That'd be nice.
So, yeah, Erika Ishii. That's the name I had heard. Thank you. So yeah, a lot of trans and non-binary youth become temporarily homeless when they come out. A lot of times their parents will kick them out. This is kind of the worst. It's kind of the worst. It's awful. When we talk about unhoused people, there are a lot of different reasons that people wind up on the street, but the main ones are mental illness with no one to care for them, being unable to hold down a job for any reason, and being temporarily unhoused for being kicked out for something like this, for being queer in some way. So it's not at all surprising that a young trans person was out on the street. They usually don't stay there long, thankfully. Usually what happens is they find places to crash, they work their way into a job that will actually keep a trans person on staff, which is not guaranteed. Of course, they'll find other reasons to claim why they couldn't hire that person, but you know, it happens. It's hard out there. It's hard out there for trans youth. It's a really distressing environment that they have right now. And I would like the world to be better for them. So I'm glad at least that this one was able to get off the street and have a fulfilling life.
You say it's easy, but do you like doing all these errands?
Huh. Yeah, I never thought about it. It's nice to have a purpose. Athena is super sweet, and she has a big, important job. Why wouldn't I want to help her out?
You can't be this nice. Are you for real?
Oh, well, the old Hermes used to say that a willingness to serve is more important than a willingness to be served.
That's an interesting one. I am not certain that I would pick Hermes as a god of service for all that he was a messenger god. More often he is portrayed as running errands because of, well, first of all, his swiftness, but second of all, because he's curious, because he's into everything. He wants to know everybody's secrets. This clearly is not a big feature of this Hermes, who seems a little bit on the naive side, but very cute.
Do I have a choice about seeing Athena? I'm not in the habit of being at anyone's beck and call.
I mean, I guess you could say no, but I wouldn't. If Athena wants something, she's gonna get it eventually. She had that look in her eyes, like she really wants to talk to you.
She could always come here. Everyone else does.
Athena, enter the mortal world? And now she doesn't do that, ever. Can you imagine?
I can actually imagine. Athena was one of the gods who is frequently depicted as coming down to speak with heroes, to interact with mortals, to protect them, to give them gifts, to give them advice, to help them get into a disguise, to cloud the minds of others, or to help them in battle. But no longer, it seems.
How does Athena manage never entering the mortal world?
She doesn't have to, I guess. Everyone brings her everything she needs. And that creepy owl of hers? Apollo says it's her eyes out in the world. It's everywhere. Watching.
So what, she just never leaves the building?
She'll go to the reliquary and places like that.
Ding, ding,
Just
ding.
never where mortals are. She wears a toga and calls cars iron
Oh,
horses.
That's not a toga, that's a chiton. What the heck are you talking about, Hermes? So, we've seen what Athena wears, and it is a chiton, it's not a toga. Greeks did not wear togas. Only Romans and only Roman senators really wore togas, and it was a peacetime garment. Like, intentionally hinders your movement type of peacetime garment. It was meant to prevent violence in the state house, essentially. Sorry, the forum. I'm not surprised at how we've seen Athena characterized, that she doesn't leave Olympus much, that she spies on people. I mean, she uses Medusa as her spy master, and apparently she can watch directly through that owl, which we already kind of knew, given how it reacted to us. Owls were her symbol, and they're the symbol of Athens, the city, as well. Real owls, not that bright. Those eyes take up a lot of space in their head. Not much room for brains. But, they look wise. And that's how people do. So, also not surprising that an owl is used for spying. It's supposed to be silent. It sees a lot. It sees in the dark. All of that. Also not surprising that she has a key to the reliquary. She is kind of in charge of everything. She has been running everything. She's been keeping secrets, even from the other gods. Yeah, we'll see.
I suppose there's no point in putting it off. Do your thing. Take me to Olympus.
Okay. Oh, when you see Freddy, tell her I'm sorry I couldn't stick around for the movie. And mind if I say something?
Sure.
You've changed. I mean, from the person I met when I first came here. When,
This is
you
my
got it
first
together
playthrough, yes.
Really quick.
So I don't know for sure what the end of the story is.
Thanks, I guess.
I have seen some alternate tracks just in playing a little bit with other people's streams, but I have been intentionally keeping myself from knowing the end. Although, I feel like I have a pretty good idea of what's going on. Oh. Interesting. We get to choose a second trait. So I had picked Charming, because that felt like the way to go for a muse. But I have found myself often wishing I could take the Clever option, so I'm going to pick that.
There you are, Grace.
And as you can see, this
Do
is
have
definitely a
seat.
Greek chiton. There's that little owl with its armor on, and
I
its
prefer
teeny
to
little
stand.
helmet.
Thanks.
As you like. You've certainly been busy, haven't you? Everywhere I turn, there you are. Including the reliquary.
Oh.
I'm uncertain how you got access, but even you must have realized it's off limits.
Oh boy.
Particularly for your mortal friend.
Yeah. I mean, I would give any of these options, but
But you know what happened there. That's where Calliope was attacked.
Yet it's not where she died, Grace, is it?
So because
actually,
she
I
made it
have no
all the
reason
way
to
to my
believe
apartment,
that Athena knew
we
that,
shouldn't
except
care
that I'm
why she was
sure she
bleeding
did,
to
'cause
death
I
along
think
the
she
way.
was there.
You think our judgment was rash? It was. In truth, I worried that giving you time, letting us all get to know you, would make it harder in the end. I am sorry.
A
Grace.
statue of
You
Ares,
may
huh?
not believe it, but I care deeply. I care about what happens to you and to all the idols.
Ooh. Ooh. Spicy. So I did want to comment on that statue of Ares that it focused on for a bit, and I do know that they do a lot of like, let's show off the art in the backgrounds thing, but given what we know about Ares in this universe, that he has been killed permanently, that he was involved with the Nazis, and had them ransack Olympus, the original Olympus, and brought the Greek gods to the New World in order to escape. It is interesting to me that Athena would keep a statue of him around, especially knowing how much it traumatizes Aphrodite, who was captured and tortured. This is, after all, her office. So, want to talk about this option to say, yes, Hitler did know about the Greek gods. Hitler was interested in all sorts of mysticism, but in-game, Ares actually went to them and offered them this chance to basically take a bunch of divine secrets. So the option to say, like, you care about Medusa is really spicy. In the case where clearly Athena has cursed and abused her for thousands of years. Yee! But I am not sure I feel like being that spicy. I would be interested in, if I had just taken the kick-ass trade, I'd be interested in where that takes us, but I'm actually more interested in the general.
Let's explore where all that caring has gotten them, shall we? You're holding on with a grip so tight, your knuckles are turning white. But that's not enough, is it? Every idol I've met is either lost or broken, or both. They're all slipping through your fingers. If you actually cared about them, you'd do something about it instead of sitting up here worrying about your precious rules.
Zeus was the first to leave. King of the gods. And we don't even know what became of him. Vanished into the ether.
That's an interesting
Poseidon was
statement.
next. Walked out into the seas, never to be heard from again. Ares betrayed us. Hephaestus saved us. Hades was murdered, and by one of our own.
Persephone.
The list goes on.
So, what we know about what happened to Zeus is that he summoned all of the idols together to prepare for a war, and then nobody remembers what happened, but he wasn't there when Athena summoned them back to themselves. But Athena remembers enough to know that he walked away, enough to have his crown, his golden laurels, resting on her desk. Grace's accusation of her holding on too tight, I think, is very likely to be true.
So you add to it. I show up and you kill me off because you can't be too careful.
We are dying, Grace. I don't mean diminishing or drifting apart. I mean, our immortality is disappearing. Very soon now, the idols will be no more. We are a legacy
Looked
that
like a picture of
spans
Eros and
millennia,
Psyche.
dating back to the very dawn of humankind. So yes, I care. I will do anything and everything in my power to avoid that fate, even if it appears unfair.
You know, it's too bad. I've been an idol for 5 minutes, and I've been out there solving problems you've all wrestled with for how long now? I could have helped you, Athena. I could have helped all of you. But you don't see that, do you? You're so busy holding on to what you have. You can't see what you're throwing away.
I know we've put a great deal on your shoulders, Grace. I do. All I called you here to ask is that you please not make my job more difficult than it already is. If you have any other questions or concerns, now's the time to bring them up.
Let's start with what is probably going to be the least offensive to her.
Who has access to the reliquary? Is it anyone with a key, or...
Does it matter? You gained access, so clearly it is not difficult to get.
It does fucking
Speaking
matter.
of which, I don't suppose you'll tell me who gave you that key.
Of course not.
The same person gave it to me who gave it to Calliope.
And who gave it to Calliope then? I see.
Speaking of the reliquary, you went there, right? Once Hecate told you what happened?
Yeah, I was not impressed by the delay.
If you had known about that, the night Calliope died, would it have made a difference?
The chances are exceedingly small that you attacked her there, it's true. Yet, Calliope was weakened, which made her more vulnerable prey for an enterprising mortal. One she knew. Perhaps the incidents are connected, perhaps not. I cannot afford the risk of uncertainty, Grace. I'm sorry.
You're not sorry. Well,
All right, let's talk about Medusa.
Met her, have you?
Is it true you can't remove her curse? Or is she just too useful?
I wish I could remove the curse. I'm afraid the Athena who bestowed it is long gone. She was prideful, that Athena. As prideful as she was powerful, I'm ashamed to say.
The current Athena is responsible for everything she's done.
I am well aware, Grace. What is it that you would have me do exactly?
How about you stop treating her like a servant? Maybe send her somewhere she won't be tempted all the time.
Oh, well, if you happen to hear of a diet camp for man-eating monsters, by all means, do let me know. Now, if there isn't anything else?
What do you know of Pan?
Pan? That's not a name I expected to hear. Been sniffing around you, has he?
I have some suspicions, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
Pan lurks at the edges because he likes it there, seeking out whatever profit he thinks he can get away with. Avoid him, dear, or he'll stick to you like gum to the bottom of your shoe.
Okay, so you don't like Pan much. I get that. But do you think he could kill someone?
We've all killed, my dear. I was once a warrior queen, feared by mortals and gods alike.
Another idol, I mean.
Is that where your investigation has led you? To Pan?
you would like that, wouldn't you?
Sort of. But I feel like I'm missing something important. Maybe the goddess of wisdom could help me out?
It would be helpful to know what Calliope was doing at the reliquary, but she's not available to ask. Not until you regain her memories, at least.
Why not put off the trial until then? Seems like a good way to solve all this. Yeah?
And trust what you decide to share? I think not.
Yeah.
I guess
you
I'll get
were
back to my investigation.
Unhelpful?
I am
How
rooting
surprising.
for you, Grace. If there's another way to resolve this, any way at all, I will take it.
Will you? Really?
Good luck. Feel free to take a cookie on your way out.
No thanks. One thing that I think is really interesting is that Athena there
Don't
was
take it
display.
personally,
Display.
Grace.
Oh well.
Athena's first instinct is to follow the rules whenever things get rough. As if she believes that if the idols don't blindly
Persephone's
follow
in
every rule to
her
the letter,
apartment.
we'll dissolve into utter chaos.
Weird.
Is she right?
Probably.
Okay. So now that we have a pause, I just want to talk a little bit more about that. So I want to talk about xenia, one of my favorite Greek concepts. This is the concept of it's usually translated as guest-host friendship, which I kind of hate because it's really obscure and makes it sound like it's not important now, but it's really... It's the concept of hospitality and the responsibilities of both parties to be a good host and a good guest, respectively. Now, in ancient Greece, there was, as in many cultures, quite honestly, the responsibility of if somebody comes to you, if a traveler comes, if a beggar comes, you Do not ask questions before giving them shelter and food and water. Well, wine. Watered wine. You water the wine to make yourself less drunk, but you wine the water to make it more safe to drink. So we've seen this, actually. When people come to each other's places, Apollo has not actually shown very good Xenia. When you go into his house, he doesn't offer you a seat. Not the only chair in the place is taken by the Oracle. That's not that surprising. See also the comment I've heard a couple times about Apollo always leaning against walls. He doesn't seem to believe in chairs. Anyway, he doesn't offer you anything to eat or drink. That's not good Xenia. When you go to Persephone, when you go into her office as a guest, she offers you a drink, and you are always depicted. I mean, there aren't chairs in there either, but at least sitting on the furniture, sort of leaning against the bars. Athena follows the rules of Xenia very closely. You're offered a seat. You're offered food. You're offered the food late, which is probably a calculated insult on her part that is not being transmitted. I don't know how much the developers were thinking about this, but I do find it very interesting. Because you know who else follows the rules pretty precisely and who is very rule-bound is Hecate. When you first come in, you're an intruder, and she tries to get rid of you, but once she understands that you're a guest, even though, you know, she doesn't know who you are, we will sit, there will be tea. That's Xenia. So here we have Persephone in Grace's home, and she is doing as much sitting as she or Apollo ever do, and having a drink. She always seems to have whiskey in a tumbler. You know, whatever. She was a mob queen, whatever. But okay, let's finish this out. So I want to know
Do you
if
think she's
Persephone
telling the
thinks that the
truth
idols are dying.
about the idols dying out?
I'm not sure. If it is true, why hasn't she told the rest of the chorus?
It sounds like she doesn't trust you.
Well, the feeling is
Well,
mutual.
she
At
doesn't.
any rate, I'm afraid we're going to have to disappoint.
Death Menace.
Uh-oh. What now?
I want to
You
go
need
see
back
Death
to the
Menace.
reliquary, Grace.
You know, Athena said something to me. That it'd be nice to know what Calliope was doing there in the first place.
And she's correct.
It's the only piece of the puzzle we're missing. Calliope went there because she had a plan. But what plan?
If she left clues behind, wouldn't Hecate have found them already?
That's a really good question.
We can't ask Calliope what her plan is. But you might be able to remember what she was doing there.
Oh.
Her memories? But I thought...
That it will take years, yes. But if you go somewhere important to Calliope, or touch something special to her, you'll get flashes, feelings.
Do you want Grace to go to the reliquary so she can have deja vu?
I'm willing to wager the place Calliope met her fate has left its mark in Grace's psyche. We have only to uncover it.
Oh. Isn't Apollo something like the god of dolphins? Dolphins are often associated with Apollo. They're also associated with Dionysus and with Poseidon, in that way that, like, horses are associated with, like, 5 different gods as well. But yeah, Apollo being a surfer does kind of make sense in the, like, skimming across the surface like a ray of sun or a dolphin. That does make sense. So this is an interesting idea that we can provoke memories of Calliope's. So I'm just going to be upfront now and say that I personally, my suspicion is that Athena did it, and that this is all a game of hers to try and hold on. That she thought that Calliope's plan was going to wreck her precious model of keeping the Olympians together, and she did it to, in her mind, preserve the idols. I, don't have proof of that. I have a lot of absence and a lot of obstruction to work from. But I do think that she didn't mean to give us this key. And yet she did.
Last time Freddy and I were there, Hecate wouldn't let us into the reliquary. Not without Athena's permission.
I'm certainly not suggesting we ask Athena for permission.
Then you mean...
A week ago, I would have said breaking into the reliquary was impossible. Yet it appears Hecate can be surprised. If her book says she will be.
Let's hope the book says that again, I guess.
Unless you've some other plan. I'm all ears, as they say.
What about the alarms? I'm not eager to have Asterion chasing me through the fog.
Not really sure.
Calliope
what
snuck
he'd do,
in
though.
without setting off any alarms.
At least at first.
Well, I'll be following in Calliope's footsteps, won't I? What if I follow the wrong footstep and set them off?
Then they discover you, and we apologize profusely.
Yeah, it's
Will
true.
not be a good look, though, just saying.
Are you sure about this? You want me to wander around hoping something comes to me?
I do know something about how memories work after the transition, but no, I'm not certain. You want certainty? Wait until your trial. Without discovering more, the outcome of that is certain.
What if Medusa is lying? What about Pan? We could look into him some more, couldn't we?
Oh my,
don't think
my,
Pan
you're
is
just
lying
full
to
of
us.
ideas, aren't you? Do you have any suggestions regarding how we might go
Oh,
about?
Persephone and Freddy aren't getting along. That's too bad.
Deja vu it is.
Let's say I do this. What am I hoping to find?
Well,
Some
I have some
memory of who
ideas.
attacked Calliope, or why she was there. Anything we could work with. I've spoken to almost all the idols, and every single one says they hadn't seen or heard from her. If she was keeping to
Terraforming.
herself,
I'm trying to read those
why
posters
now?
in the background.
What started this? We're missing something important, Grace.
What if Grace goes there and the memory she sees is that she attacked Calliope? A Grace from the future. It'd be a twist.
Is there really no other way? This seems a bit desperate.
That's because we are desperate, Grace. Either we take this shot at learning the truth, or we overthrow Athena and the chorus by
Cretin.
force, and disregard this stupid trial.
Oh boy.
She's
Oh,
joking,
metal
right?
music.
She's joking, right?
Right then. Back to the reliquary it is.
Any idea how you want to do this, Grace? Because I'm game to help.
Cool. I'm sure we can figure something out.
I can't go in with you. Hecate would sense me right away. I will, however, stay close by. If anything happens, I'll come. Hecate won't stop me. The Minotaur won't stop me. Nothing will.
Romancing a murderous goddess of the underworld who doesn't take shit pays off in interesting ways.
Gosh, it almost seems like you care.
Ugh, can we just get on with this already?
Jealous, Freddy? Oh my. So this seems like a good place for us to pause for the week. But don't worry, we'll be back next Saturday to find out what's going on with the reliquary. I am very intrigued to find out if we find any proof of my plan, or my concept, or if I turn out to be completely wrong. Just fascinating. Just fascinating. Ah, I love it. Okay. Well, thanks for coming with me, folks. Thanks especially to Bishless Kamikaze for joining in the chat. And this stream will go live on YouTube later today. And I will see you next week. Keep learning, friends.